Hi readers, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines, those swashbuckling ladies who have to work a little harder than expected for their happy ending.
Want to see what's next on our TBR list? Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Instagram for a sneak peek at upcoming content or to help us pick our next book. And we are here at episode 13, and I want to caveat this. These last 4 episodes rocked my shit.
They will fuck you up. So you need to set aside time
to cry.
Process everything. So I think it's probably good that we stopped at episode 12.
That is true.
Like you and I had a long viewing break, and then we kind of circled back around. So Katie, you and I both watched these last 4 episodes this week.
All at once, too? Like one sitting.
I finished watching episode 16 last night.
Yeah. But it just, I cried for 3.5 hours, and it was ugly crying too. So just emotionally prepare yourself if you're going into watching these episodes or you're just going to listen. It's probably not going to hit as hard if you're just listening, but holy fuck.
Yeah, just brace yourself. It does have a good ending.
Yeah.
You will have some closure and some satisfaction with the way things wrap up, but my God, they could have ended it at several points. We are covering the last set of episodes. This is 13 through 16.
Yes, yeah.
Of Crash Landing on You because we aren't doing titles.
That is true. Yeah.
So if you just randomly clicked on this episode, we are watching the K-drama Crash Landing on You.
Yeah.
This is part 4.
Yeah.
The very end of the show.
Yes. You could be one of those people, I was about to say freaks, but that's kind of mean.
Rude.
That just likes to hear the end of stories. You don't care about the build-up and stuff.
That's where you're going with that.
That could be a thing. I feel like people are like that. They just care about the endings of books. I know. You're giving me crazy eyes. I feel like
No, I feel like this is targeted because...
What? Well, you still read the book. You just flash to the end and then ruin it for
Not
yourself
always.
for some reason.
Sometimes, I mean, that's what happened with Foxglove a little bit, but it's fine. Crash Landing on You. We left off with Captain Lee and
Yoon
City. How much am I going to stutter over these names?
Oh, they're the same.
They just met up with the squad who sneaked into South Korea, and now everyone's a big happy family.
And it's cute because all of the scenes that happen immediately following this are cute happy family scenes, basically.
Adorable.
Yeah.
So, is it Seodan?
Seodan, the fiance.
Yeah, Seodan, the fiance, Captain Lee's fiance. Her mother goes to her apartment back in North Korea and discovers sweet Alberto.
I love him so much more after finishing this.
So Alberto is an interesting character. He's super charming, but you're not sure if you're supposed to like him in the beginning because he's a little slimy. But these last set of episodes, you're like, oh, I'm an Alberto fan.
Yup. Because he's just so manipulative, and you feel that every time anybody talks to him that he's just using you or whatever. But he's definitely one of those actually morally gray characters, and he has his redemption arc, but it's still within his character.
It makes sense for him.
Yeah.
So he has a little tete-a-tete. Is that how you say it with?
Tete-a-tete?
Oh, maybe. With Seodan's mom. And she's
This is so cute.
He takes her hand and is just
exuding charm.
Aren't I handsome? Don't you want me for your daughter? And she's like, I don't know how to handle this right now, but we're gonna go with it. And then it kind of flashes back to South Korea. And do you want to talk about this scene?
Oh, yes. So Yoon City, the whole time she was in North Korea, was talking about how rich she was, and all of the squad is okay.
Bullshit.
Sure.
There's no way.
Yeah. And so basically she's as a reward, I want to treat you guys. You guys were so nice to me. Take my credit card. This is called, she makes some joke about it, you using your mom's credit card.
Yeah.
And she's this is City's credit card. And she's there's no limit. Just buy whatever you want. And so we get this montage of them on a shopping spree, and they're buying things, but you would assume they would go to Gucci, Chanel, YSL. They go to some random non-named shopping stores.
They go to street market vendors and buy like fast food.
Yep.
And
Yep,
Yeah.
they really aren't spoiling like themselves at all. And the cutest scene.
Oh, this scene just killed me.
So the little like private is probably like 18, 17, and he sees this little like squirrel hat that has these ears when you like press buttons on them that like move. And he's like, this is the best thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And he's like, well, it's a little bit expensive, but like buy it. Like we have Yun City's credit card or whatever. It was 7,500 won, which is about $3.50.
Yeah. And then he also says, my cousins would love these.
I know. He's like talking about his family, and he's just this cute little innocent like blob of cuteness. And you're like, I just want to protect you.
And so he keeps on wearing this little squirrel hat
The whole time.
Oh, it's so sweet.
And it's cute too, because they all get clothes, and then they see this little group of like students or something, like, you know, performing, and they're all like making their assessments. They're like, they're beggars. They're like street performers. Like, what is this? But it's just a bunch of kids, you know, making probably a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And the little private is like looking at their like school uniforms, and he's like, that's it. That's what I want to wear.
That's the outfit I want. Yeah. Well, they also like go like shopping for regular clothes, and they see all the ripped jeans. They're like, why are they buying these destroyed clothes? They really don't have access to good clothing here. And I can relate to that.
Except the one that like who they've all said looks like a K-star or like a model or something. He like walks out in slow-mo with the pants on, and they're like,
I want one of
I
them.
could wear those. It's just such a like fun, heartwarming scene to immediately, you know, get tension
squashed
after.
by darkness. Yeah, because evil bitch-in-law.
Bitch-in-law. I like that.
Well, so this is the second oldest brother. Siri's second younger brother?
Yeah. The one that lost all the money that is like a little bit conniving.
Yeah.
So the first one's bumbling. This one's conniving.
Yeah. And his wife is even more conniving, and that's bitch-in-law.
Yeah.
And she's like evil. There is no redemption arc for this character.
Ew.
But she tries to take over Siri's choice again. So if you remember back in part 3, I think, she tried to do like a vote of the board of directors to like boot Syria off. And like that's when she showed up. It's like, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
So this bitch tries to do it again.
It was surprising.
Yeah, like really this is your avenue. But what I really enjoyed is that Yunseri's mom has like discovered her maternal instincts and like shows up at this board meeting to be like, are you really doing this again? Like, do you know who your father is? He will kill you. Or like your father-in-law, whatever.
Yeah.
So like mom just shuts this shit down. And like that's the end of it.
Yep.
And it's just like I really appreciated like this glimpse into family dynamics because sister-in-law doesn't even try to fight it. She's like, oh, well, my mother-in-law says no. My father-in-law is terrifying because he just got out of prison. He has a lot of money. So we're just going to pursue another avenue.
Because I feel like this is kind of the point that there's almost factions within the family now. So you have the older brother who's the like kind of bumbling, just doing his best.
His wife runs the show, but even she is kind of
bumbling.
Yeah.
And they have kind of like sided up with the mom, and they're like, okay, you need to be in charge of the company now. Like we're going to, you know, bundle our shares, and like that makes sense because Yun City, I guess, can't be the CEO or she doesn't want to anymore. And so they've made a faction. And then you have the brother and the bitch-in-law who are just falling over themselves trying to find a way to stay in power and like get rid of Yun City basically. And it just gets darker and darker as we go through these episodes.
So they like start calling the truck gang, it's called like Chol Gang or something.
Yeah, Chol Gang.
Yeah, like so you see the bitch-in-law like make these phone calls, and so she's basically working with Captain Lee's arch nemesis to get rid of Yun City and Captain Lee. So meanwhile, there's a kind of lighthearted scene to tide you through, and I would be really curious if this is the actual translation.
I didn't understand this part.
So Yun City asked Captain Lee if he wants to, quote, bunk off. That's the English translation.
It kind of means playing hooky, but like I've never heard of bunk off before.
Neither have I. But yeah, it basically means like, let's skip work, let's spend the day together. So they go to the movies, they do a bunch of coupley things. And then they end up walking in the beautiful sunshine on this bridge. And it's like full fucking circle. Captain Lee like comes out and does this very roundabout confession to Siri about, hey, by the way, you remember that tape recorder that you had lying around? So I was on this bridge in Switzerland and there was a woman there, and you see Yoon Soo-ri being like, you're telling me about another woman right now?
Yeah.
And he does this very cute kind of roundabout way, and she finally puts the pieces together that he recognized her as the woman on the bridge in Switzerland that he asked to take a picture of him and Seodan to save her life, because Yoon Soo-ri was about to jump off the bridge in Switzerland until this handsome man noticed her and was like, hey, here's a camera.
I'm going to distract you from this.
Yeah. And it's a very cute moment of these two characters realizing like destiny is throwing like us in each other's way, like over the years, over and over and over again.
Because I think even Yoon City is like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, there's another time that we have met again.
Yeah.
She's baffled.
They like, and I think Captain Lee is just accepting it. He like just rolls with it. Like, of course, this is how the universe works.
He's like, obviously, we're in love. So, yes.
Yeah. So that's a very sweet moment. And that's what episode 13 is. It's a lot of up and downs of like dark, light. And then it goes dark again.
Yeah. And this one kind of got me fucked up.
I was not happy about this scene.
No, because so the rat, you know, he's kind of attached to the squad now to help. And he's the one that has basically been working with Chol Gang for a long time. And he's like, you know what? No, I can't do this anymore. I need to help. Except Chol Gang calls him and he kind of like walks away from the group and he's like, hello, who is this? And he's like, your son, you know, goes to the school. This is a picture of him, isn't it? And he's like, motherfucker. And so basically the rat is given an ultimatum that unless you want something or unless you don't want something horrible to happen to your son, you need to tell me exactly when Yoon City is going to leave her house to, you know, go on the, to go to like a stock meeting or stockholders meeting. And then also tell me when the squad and Captain Lee are going to get on this truck to go to the truck meeting competition or whatever. That's their way back into North Korea. And we get as the audience this like crazy like fade off and you assume that he is going to do it and you're like,
I hated this. So I hate when they take like a bad character, make them good, and then give them an opportunity to be bad again.
Yeah.
And then leave you in suspense about like what's actually happening.
Yeah, because the next scene is just the cars leaving and everything, you know, them going to all of their separate destinations. And you're like, I have no fucking idea what's going to happen during this. But it's sad too, because it's like he wants to do the right thing, but his like cute ass little kid is like
what would you do? Like if someone's threatening your child and your spouse and
fuck, you got me fucked up. And so the next scene is does it have another flash to something cute or does it go into the craziness?
I think there's so many scenes interspersed between like the action, because we bounce between North Korea, South Korea, and some flashbacks. So like I think there is a cute scene that I think we should touch on.
Is this the Alberto one? Without his shirt on.
Oh,
that's the one I was thinking of.
Yes, let's just go to that one.
Okay, yeah.
So back in North Korea, the women of the village are trying to unite together to find one of the woman's husbands, who's like the colonel, and he's been detained by one of the super baddie security departments. And so they're like, oh, we know someone who knows someone. Let's go to them and see if they can help us. And so that someone that they go to is Seodan's mom. And so they go to Seodan's apartment, I think.
Yeah.
And do you want to finish it?
So we have this like group of, you know, well-meaning but kind of intrusive housewives, basically.
Very intrusive.
And so they're knocking on the door and they're like, hey, like you're the uncle's aunt's wife's brother, stepsister of that one guy that's in power. Can you maybe help us with this situation? Except Seodan is not home. It's just Alberto. He just stepped out of the shower. He has a towel around his waist. His abs just sparkling,
gleaming in the light.
And so they keep knocking, and he's like, okay, like fuck, like they're not leaving. I need to go put some clothes on. And he's walking down the hallway and he hears the like
door open.
And there is Seodan and all of these housewives staring at this man.
I mean, you would stare too.
Oh, I did stare.
Did you pause just for
Yes, but like also the scene is set up where you get this moment of all of these like women's faces just like, what?
Jaw dropped. And God love Alberto, because he is just dripping in like confidence. Like he doesn't care. So he just stops. He's like, I'll let you look.
He's like, oh, you caught me at a bad time. Let me just go get changed
Casually
really quick.
strolls away.
And then like has the little hip sway too. And you see Siodan like, okay, I have maybe made a couple mistakes.
Right? And all the women are like, that's your cousin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such an adorable scene because it sets Alberto up again to have this like really
Cute.
Good.
But one of the women, so Alberto comes back dressed this time, we can cry a small tear over that, and makes a point of saying that, hey, man, I saw you coming out of Captain Lee's house the other day. What were you doing there? And Siodan is like, excuse me, but she covers for him.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh yeah, I asked him to go over there to pick something up for me. And this kind of leads Siodan and Alberto later on. We get a scene later on in the episode where they're walking, and Siodan's like, why were you at Captain Lee's house? And Alberto confesses, like, I helped him and Yunsuri get across the border.
Yeah.
And that's where he's at right now.
And it's just so sad because in this scene, like, you have to think Siodan has now been kind of betrayed almost by two of the men in her life. Like, her fiance all of a sudden fell in love with this woman from South Korea. And like, she tried to make it work for a little bit, but it was obvious that he was desperately in love with Yoon City. And now she has Alberto, who she's like trying to help and kind of maybe sort of like intrigued by him. Yet again, he kind of betrayed her almost in, again, helping Captain Lee and Yoon City get back to South Korea, not telling her about it. And so she's like really devastated. And this scene it kind of fucked me up too, because you just feel so bad for Siodan getting like dicked down like twice by like these people that she's like, she just wants to be loved. And it's just
no
again
one
and
loves
again.
her. Like, she is probably the only character in the show that like really doesn't do anything bad.
Yeah.
She is in love with Captain Lee, has been since she was 18 years old, and is just trying to like conclude her relationship because they've been engaged. And I talk about this a little bit later, but like now's a good point. Siodan and Yunsuri are, I think I'm saying Yunsuri like the most American flat accent. Yunsuri, they're very similar in like character types. So they're both very well off, used to luxuries, kind of like the whole picky princess. That's Siodan as well.
Yeah.
I think the fine difference between these two characters is Yunsuri is very confident and very self-assured, a little bit more extroverted. She doesn't have any hesitations about talking to people or confronting people, while Siodan is way more reserved, more introverted. And like there's a scene between her and Alberto where he's like, you're haughty and reserved and cold, and I love it.
Yeah.
But like I think that's the difference, is because externally they kind of present the same archetype.
That is true.
But one's basically an introvert, the other's an extrovert.
And it's fun too getting both of the characters, because if you don't necessarily relate to Yoon City, like you probably relate to Siodan. And it's nice too because you kind of see how both personalities maybe experience love relationships and how it's like a little bit more difficult or more easy for one or the other in different points of the relationship arc.
Exactly.
And, I just love Siodan's character because she is so like kind of cold and aloof, and like
I think you and I probably
a cat.
Yeah.
And then Yoon City is like a dog, like cat dog difference.
You and I probably relate more to Siodan as a character.
Yeah, I could see that.
And like in these later episodes, that's kind of where I connected the most with Siodan. Like you always like Yunsuri because she's set up to be liked.
Yeah.
And if you don't like her, you probably shouldn't be watching the show.
Yeah.
But Siodan has got such a relatable backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I get emotional. I'm fine. I'm probably going to cry later, but it's fine.
Yeah, this is a lot of build up for so much more that happens in episodes 14, 15, and 16. So back in South Korea, the shopping spree is kind of concluded, and this evil plan is getting like kicked off by Cholgang and the rat until we
because so this is where the brother kind of takes a more active role because, you know, he walked out of that first meeting with the bitch-in-law in Chulgang because he's like, if it got out that I was trying to kill my sister, this would be like a huge big deal. Like, I can't fucking do this. But then he's at the point where his dad is basically like, you are not going to be the president of this company anymore. You've like bumbled your way through this. Like, you fucked up one too many times. And so he is, you know, confronted with Chulgang one more time. And he's like, well, if you're going to do this, you need information. You know, Yoon City is going to be at this shareholders meeting. This is the route that she takes. You know, you figure out some way to make sure that she doesn't get there. And he's like, you do know, like, are you giving me leave to kill her or just abduct her? And he's like, I don't care what happens, just get her out. So that is now, we have moved from, you know, conspiracy to like active attempts at assassination.
Like, the family is just evil. This
Fucked
brother,
up.
man. But
Yeah.
thank God for Captain Lee
Mm-hmm.
and the rat.
The rat.
Well, okay, so this is kind of where I feel a little conflicted because, I mean, you get these, so another thing these shows do really well is they set you up with all of these expectations, and then later on in the show, they give you glimpses of how those scenes fully happen.
It's like a flashback.
Yeah, so earlier we saw Captain Lee confront the rat, be like, hey, is there anything you want to tell me? And we flashed away. And now we find out what happens, which is Captain Lee said, is there anything you want to tell me? And the rat was like, confesses all, basically says, hey, Chulgang is trying to extort me and about this entire plan with Yoon Suri. And so this is kind of where everything kicks off with Captain Lee, the rat, and the squad coming up with this plan to go along with the route, this kidnapping attempt, but kind of interrupted.
Yeah.
This is so good.
I know, because there's another scene. So Yoon City gets in her, like, you know, bright-ass red Range Rover, and she's going down a street. There's nobody around. She's going to the shareholders meeting. And all of a sudden, you see these, like, guys kind of close the road behind her, and you're like, oh, this isn't good. And then, you know, a bunch of vans kind of, like, bypass her and then cut her off, and she's just, like, there in the car looking very frightened. And then the scene flashes, and you're like, oh, she's about to get fucking just murdered on this, like, empty street.
Well, and then you see, at the same time, Captain Lee walking into a deserted building by himself. With only the power of his turtleneck.
I mean, it's very powerful, but like maybe not against other
not
men.
enough to fight 30 men and the evil archvillain. So we get these two scenes happening simultaneously. And then we flash back to Yoon Suri in her Range Rover. And my God, again,
I love this.
The power of a three-piece suit on any man.
God, we get the single best, like, Peaky Blinders-esque, like, reveal. So the squad basically, like, rolls out of her Range Rover as she's being surrounded by dudes, and they're like, we're gonna fuck things up.
We're the special forces.
Oh, God. And it's cute because the one guy, the one that likes K-dramas, he's kind of like the bumbling, just like cute, whatever. And he has this moment where Yoon City is like hanging out of the door and she's like, please be careful. Like, you know, watch out. Like, be careful. And he kind of turns all like cocky and he's like, it's okay. We're special forces. And then just beats the shit out of the dude next to him. It's the best. Like,
so, I mean, for an action scene, it's adorable. And then I absolutely loved. So the grumbly, I think he's a master sergeant. He's the one who Yoon Suri also like butts heads with the entire show. He's very grumbly. He doesn't like anyone, but he's like secretly a teddy bear on the inside. So he's not the most attractive man in the world, but he puts on this suit in this scene, and you're like, wait, what just happened to you? But he gets whacked on the back of the head with a board and he freezes and stops and like slowly turns. And I swear every fiber in my body was like, what is going to happen? And he's like, did you really want to do that? And just beats the shit out of this guy.
This whole scene is so great. Yeah. There is something weirdly attractive about men in suits, like beating people up. Like, I don't know if that's like a historical, you know.
We have a hormonal response to that. Well, it's the suits and it's the turtleneck. My God.
Combination, it's a little bit too much for my weak disposition.
Yeah, like this happened. I'm like, I shouldn't be having these emotions about these secondary characters. But like, okay, thank you. We'll go with it. And meanwhile, Captain Lee is fighting his own battles all by himself.
Him again in that black turtleneck with the black. He has like the all black fit on, and it just like does something to my insides.
Oh,
That was a little aggressive, but like
me both. But like, so this got a little ridiculous.
It did.
You have to suspend reality.
Yeah.
He is just hand-to-hand combat with 30 dudes who are armed with various like maces and boards and sticks and stuff. And so he is winning. Yeah. Clearly.
Somehow.
He is just taking out dudes one by one in a full-on, like, I don't know. I haven't seen enough action hero dude movies to compare it. But yeah, he's winning. And then he gets through all of these dudes to find the archvillain. And only then do we realize that he actually has a gun.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't use that to begin with. Though I do want to caveat, if you're maybe not familiar, South Korea has like ridiculously aggressive like anti-gun legislation and laws and stuff. So like guns are like, no, nobody has guns. There's no gun violence. And so that kind of adds like an additional layer of like, what the actual fuck later after, there's just a gun shootout.
Yeah, it's, yeah. So he ends up confronting the archvillain, and the archvillain takes like the rat hostage, I think.
Yeah, and he's like dragging him out of the building, and Yoon City is watching because obviously she had the squad help her, and she like delivers them to then help Captain Lee, and she's just like watching from her little Range Rover as the rat is being dragged out, and she's like, fuck,
what's happening? And then I think somehow the rat manages to get away, and then the arch-villain dude, he's running away, like he's hiding.
Yeah, because they like stumble to the ground. The Chol gang guy is like strangling the rat. But then they see Captain Lee kind of wander out because he's like, where the fuck did like the one guy I need to kill, where did he go? And so he like comes around the corner, and the Chol gang guy is like, struggling because he just strangled the shit out of this other dude.
Well, and he also got shot in the leg.
Yeah. He's on his last limb.
Yeah, he's well, and Yoon Suri sitting in her vehicle. These people are way far away. So Captain Lee's far away. She's watching from a distance, and she sees archvillain drag himself into hiding. And somehow this dude still has a gun.
Yeah, he just had a magic gun.
Yeah. But
his backup gun.
I guess.
Yeah.
And then you see, I don't know if I can do this scene justice.
Yeah. So Chol gang, I'm just gonna launch into it. I also don't think I can. So Chol gang kind of raises the gun, and Yoon City is like panicking because Captain Lee hasn't seen the Chol gang guy yet, and he's still like kind of lumbering around looking after beating up all these guys. And Yoon City is just watching with her like hands on the steering wheel, just fucking like, Captain Lee, turn around. And he does not. And Chol gang lifts up the gun to shoot him, and Yoon City is like, fuck. And so she like slams on the gas, goes forward, and then right as this is happening, she like slams in front of Captain Lee, so she's blocking, the sight from the gun, and then you hear one lone gunshot go off and a window shatter, and then you get the sad montage music.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Slow motion.
Holy fuck.
So Captain Lee watches all of this happen, and you see like the horror on his face.
Devastation. This man is really good at those devastating looks.
But thankfully he reacted like I would hope a good like hero reacts, which is not to rush directly to the car and like pull her out, because clearly there's still someone shooting at him. So he like immediately aims and fires at the villain dude again. And I think he actually makes contact, and the dude runs away.
Yeah.
And then Captain Lee runs to the driver's side, and just the act of him opening the driver's side door and Yoon Suri unconscious, just slumping out of the car into his arms onto the ground.
Yeah, and it was his arm like catching her head before her head that did something to me. Like, I was like, whoa.
And she's got like a gunshot to her abdomen.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there like unable to process because she's dying in his arms. And then the squad comes out of the building, and they're so happy because they won the battle, and then they see her lying on the ground, and then that's the end of episode 13.
Yeah.
So if you need to pause and breathe in between us talking about episode 14, now would be the time to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, we are moving on to episode 14, and let me just say that there is a line, I heard it, and God knows how correct the translation is, but I wrote it down as soon as I heard it because, ugh.
Yeah.
So Captain Lee is kind of having this internal self-reflection moment because he's in the ambulance with Yoon City. The squad is there. She's not waking up. And he's just has this internal commentary about how he's feeling in this moment. It's like one of the few times we get a glimpse into his like internal monologue. And this line, I still have stories that I haven't told you yet. Oh, if that's not, it sums up everything that you should feel about like a close friend or family member and what it feels like to lose them. Like I still have so many things I either want to experience with you or tell you about. Like it just speaks to all of those missed moments.
Oh God. And he does like that desperate wait, like acting so
it's very stoic, but like a glimmer of a tear.
Oh God. It's just immediately how he would want any male or like really any lead.
And the fact that they're married in real life.
Oh. I am not okay.
No.
God. It's just the stoic, like controlled, like masculine energy while he's like waiting, but he's like there by her bedside, fucking without sleeping, without eating, like never leaving. It's like, oh, it's not okay.
It's so okay. So Yoon City doesn't wake up for days.
Yeah.
And Yoon City's family shows up. They're a bunch of assholes, except for her mom and her dad, obviously. And they, not her parents, but the evil bitch-in-law and her brother, banish Captain Lee from the waiting area.
Yeah, they do. Because they're like, this is only for family. Like, who are you?
You're just a bodyguard.
Yeah.
And kick him out. And you see him like, well, there's nothing I can do at this point.
And he waits outside the hospital.
He keeps waiting. And the squad is waiting too.
Yeah. And they're all staring up and they're like, why is she not waking up yet? Is she okay? What if something happened?
But praise the Lord for Yoon Suri because she wakes up and her first fucking words to her evil family are buzz off. Like this very soft whisper. And I love, like as a character, she stays true to herself the entire time.
Yep. And it's adorable too, because as soon as she's like coherent, she's like, where is Lee? Gives his like full name or whatever. And everybody's like, I don't know. He like left or whatever. And so she calls him and she immediately starts chewing him out. She's like, I was like in a coma. Like, I don't feel good. Where the fuck are you?
Why did bodyguard?
Yeah. Why did you leave? And as he gets this, he's like staring up at the hospital room and he sprints just full fucking throttle through the hospital.
Shoves people aside, gets into a room, and they have the best reunion.
I know. God.
And then the squad shows up later. And I loved this scene for the rat.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
redemption.
So good. So it's a little bit later, but like they're like, how did you find out that she was healed?
Yeah.
Like she woke up so fast. And then the rat does this very like smooth, he like darts around the bed and pulls off a recording device that he put there in the very beginning when Yoon Suri was first checked into the hospital.
Yep. And we get this cute montage of them like putting it on too. So they all dress up in these very conspicuous like cleaning outfits. And it's happening concurrently as the family is having a conversation with the like hospital staff. And they're like, oh no, like rest assured, this is a very safe hospital. Like, you know, we do thorough background checks as the squad is like mopping like super fast as they're trying to go into Yoon Suri's room and they like plop it on and they're like, mission accomplished.
And as like the best lighthearted like series of scenes, as they're waiting for Yoon Suri to wake up. So she's asleep for like 3 to 4 days. You get this glimpse where the squad is sitting on a bench and they're like, what if she never wakes up? What if she dies? And the rat's like, she's gonna be fine. And he pulls
it out of his
he pulls out like the little recording device, like listening thing. And then over the next few days, you see him acting out the recordings that he's collecting from her hospital room. And it plays out like the best family drama bullshit. And the squad is like eating popcorn, watching the rat act out these scenes. Hilarious.
And there's one scene too where they're like at Subway eating sandwiches and one of them has the like listening thing and he's like, oh my God, like she like just woke up, like we need to go right now. And they all like throw up their sandwiches and like people are staring at them and they're like, what the fuck is happening? As they're all like cheering in a Subway. Subway is in this TV show a lot. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, like they're constantly eating at Subway.
Got a little bit of production money from Subway.
Apparently.
Yeah. And as this is happening, though, there's some dark undercurrents. Yeah. So the National Intelligence Service, which is the big baddie, not in a bad way, but like it's the South Korean.
We see all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have collected like is it CCTV? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have camera footage of Captain Lee exiting the tunnel, as well as the other dude, the arch villain. And then...
Well, so they like don't know who it is. And so they're like, we have some like North Korean operative like running around. And then they identify the Cholgang guy and they're like, this guy was like shot at like this, thing with Yoon City because they're investigating it. And you're like, all of these kind of parallel investigations are starting to like cling together. And then there's guns involved and then North Koreans. And you're like, they are 2 seconds away from being revealed to the NIS that there are a bunch of North Koreans in South Korea trying to help Yoon City. Like, oh no.
Yeah. So that's kind of happening in the background. But then we get some super cute scenes of Captain Lee being very overprotective about Siri while she's in the hospital. And he's like, you're not sitting up the correct way. Lay back down. I will help you sit up by increments. Oh, let me open that bottle for you. Let me like peel the apple or something like that. And the whole squad is like,
this is gross.
Like, what are you doing right now, sir?
But it's funny too, because like Yoon City is just like, yeah.
She's reveling in it. She's like, oh, you can keep doing this. That's fine.
It's like, oh, I can't open this bottle. It's just so cute.
And then we get some flashbacks to North Korea and the like concurrent storyline with Alberto and Seodan. And so they are kind of walking along the street in Pyongyang. And it comes about where like Seodan's kind of processed the fact that she and Captain Lee are not going to be together. And I forget the lead up to this line, but Alberto asks her, do you really think Captain Lee isn't interested in you because you aren't attractive enough? And you see her like not understand the question. Yeah. She's like, why else wouldn't he? But like Seodan has this like crisis of self-confidence throughout the show.
100%.
Like she's always second guessing herself. And like you see that in the Switzerland flashbacks. And then she's just, I think she's shy.
Yeah, 100%. And it's adorable too because he calls her basically like haughty, demanding. But then he's like, those are all the things that I love about you. And then he also calls her pretty and she's like, and like, tell me more. And he's just absolutely like indulging her. He's like, yeah, and you're like beautiful and aloof and smart and intelligent. And she's like, and he's just like, I got all day, baby.
Yeah. And then this is where they have their first kiss.
It's so fucking cute. Because it's just these like two characters that you wouldn't normally like put together. But it's like, if you could have any kind of like random fling combination, you're like, yeah, the like super aloof girl who was like, had a tragic, sad backstory, was like betrayed by her fiance. And then the con man who like has never really loved anyone.
Oh my God, I want to read it. Is that a book?
I know, honestly. God. And then they had the cute, when did the noodle thing happen? Was that earlier?
I don't remember. I think it's a flashback that we don't see originally, and that happens in 16.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, we can talk about it later then, because I love that scene too.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
It's very like sly and cute of Seodan.
Yeah.
So we
back to sadness.
Back to sadness in South Korea. That sounds like the title of another K-drama. Sadness in South Korea.
Yeah.
So the NIS developments are ongoing, and then we see bitch-in-law and brother say, "Hey, NIS, we have some information you may be interested in," and they basically oust the squad and Captain Lee and the fact that Yoon Suri was in North Korea during her absence. Yeah. And so NIS starts investigating Captain Lee, and they put all the pieces together. There's a lot of buildup to basically realize that, the squad and Captain Lee are from North Korea. They've infiltrated. We got to arrest them. As this is going on, Captain Lee is trying to track down Cholgang and finds him and tells the squad, hey, I have one thing left to take care of, and I need you to stay here at the hospital and protect Yoon Suri.
He just loves to have his heroic moment.
Does. He doesn't like to accept help.
No. Which immediately following the events of this, like it kind of checks out why he wanted to do this alone, but also.
So he leaves the squad behind, tracks down Chulgang, and as he's tracking down his villain, the NIS agents are following him and are planning to arrest Captain Lee.
Yeah, they're in like full tactical gear, SWAT vehicles, like everything.
And so Captain Lee walks into this abandoned warehouse, because it's always in an abandoned warehouse, confronts Chulgang and is like, pulls a gun on him. And Chulgang is like, oh, really, buddy? And then NIS turns on their lights, and you see all the little gun laser pointer things like track on Captain Lee, and they're like, drop your weapons, we're coming in. And Captain Lee doesn't drop his gun because he's like, this is my one chance to get Chulgang. And I loved this scene, or this line from Chulgang, which is, he's like, you're too noble of a character to shoot me.
Yeah.
And if that isn't the god awful truth.
Yup.
Because like this, as a character, he could not.
No.
Like if he shot Chulgang villain at point blank range, dude's unarmed, we would hate him. Like that's not something Captain Lee can do. But realistically,
he would hate himself too.
Yeah.
Like that's not even, it would break his psyche almost.
But also, what was he planning to do the entire fucking time? Like, so this is where you have to suspend reality. Because if he were truly his badass SF captain dude, like this dude would have been dead like episodes ago.
Yeah. But they do a good job of putting that confliction on his face, because you really feel his desperation. Like everything is closing in, Yun City's in the hospital. Like I have like 2 days left before I need to be on this bus to go back to North Korea. You feel his like, fuck, what am I going to do? And so you almost think he's like right on the verge of shooting Chulgang. And it's one of those like, I am mad at you about it because it's out of character, but also like, I'm not mad.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Like,
but then he runs out of time because now NIS is like, all right, you guys have had your countdown, and they start shooting. And Captain Lee reacts very quickly, throws himself out of the way. Chulgang gets shot.
Oh, yeah, because Chulgang pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
And they see the movement, and then they just...
Yeah.
Ooh.
So Chulgang is dying on the floor. Captain Lee is on the ground. And Chulgang pulls his like last revenge moment and says, hey, man, like, do you really think your all-powerful dad didn't know about the truck gang and how your brother died? He was complicit in all of this. He probably hopes that you die in South Korea too. And then, oh my God. Captain Lee is on the ground and he's processing. You see him processing all of these words, and he starts second guessing everything. And then he puts his own gun to his head.
And he has like tears running down his eyes, and it's like that emotional, like the manly man guy at his final straw. And it's just like, it's hard to watch.
It's very hard. But then thankfully NIS agents like storm the building, like confront him. Captain Lee drops his gun and he gets arrested and taken away. At the same time, NIS tracks down the squad at the hospital, rounds them all up. They're like, this is child's play. Arrest them, takes them away. And that's kind of where I think it wraps up. But we'll probably blend a little bit into episode 15, because you really have to watch 14 and 15 as like group episode.
I would say so. I watched them straight through.
Yeah. Like
you can't stop.
No, you can't. I think you can stop at 13.
Yeah.
Watch 13, take a break, watch 14 and 15 together. If you need to take another break, take one. And then, because 16 is like 2 hours long.
It's like 2 hours. Yeah. Because as, the squad is being like dragged away by NIS or whatever, Yun City like gets out of bed, still fucked up from her gunshot wound, and is like running after them. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't arrest them. They were trying to protect me. Like, what are you doing? And then her mom like kind of yanks her in a way, and it's like, just leave it alone. We'll like figure it out. We'll get lawyers, whatever. Like, it's fine. And you just see Yun City like sobbing as they're like taking away the squad by like the NIS, and you're like, I really don't know how they're going to like get out of this one.
Yeah, like they're adding so many different like levels and lines of involvement across the board with the government involved now. It's just not great.
Yeah. So, do you want to get fucked up now? Because we're going into
this is the time. So if you can't handle how stressful these last few bits have been,
it gets worse. This is probably the single most emotionally taxing plot point of this. I sobbed uncontrollably through the whole scenes, all of it. Ugly crying.
So I did not sob during this scene. However, I would compare this to, everything comes back to Doom at Your Service for me. But towards the end of Doom at Your Service, there's a very similar setup and scene to what happens in episode 15 and 16. And I bawled.
Yeah.
Like died all alone on the couch by myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to finish Doom at Your Service because this fucked me up. Like,
oh, the scene with the coat, man.
I'm still not okay. I didn't know that they were going to do this. Like, this was one of the real plot, like, what is it called when it, like, yeets you?
I don't know.
A plot twist.
We're going to call it a plot yeet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, back to North Korea. I don't even want to start this.
Okay, Alberto. So back to North Korea. We kind of get a lull in South Korea because everyone's been arrested.
Yeah.
Yoon is still in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. Alberto has been kidnapped. So the Chinese gang that he basically stole money from at some point or another, or that was, Chinese gang was hired by Yoon Suri's brother to track down Alberto because he stole money from the family. It's all that.
And it's hard because it's like concurrent with the like internal investigation services also trying to find him. And so it's like guys in uniform and guys in not in uniform, and they're just basically like fucking everything up. They like go through her apartment and like yeet it all apart.
Yeah.
So her apartment is trashed. Just keep that in your little pocket for later because that scene also fucked me up.
My God. So Alberto realizes there are people after him. He runs like out of the apartment, tries to escape. People are chasing him down. And then he is confronted on the rooftop by a bunch of dudes. And one is pointing a shotgun at him. And he's like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
And then it kind of we kind of circle back to South Korea. You get some filler. But basically, we find out that Alberto has been kidnapped by the Chinese gang at the request of Yoon Suri's brother. And his friend that helped him get into North Korea in the first place is like involved in some way, but manages to set it up so Alberto can escape as he's like in transit by this gang.
Yeah.
So he ends up in this little town near the border, which is the same town that Yoon Suri spent so much time in.
Yep.
And he's running away from his kidnappers because they've realized he's escaped, and he finds this group of orphans.
Yeah.
This scene. So he like hides down behind some boxes, and these little kids are like, what is this man doing here?
Yeah.
And they hide him. And he has this little interaction with these kids who are singing this heartbreaking, like, I'm an orphan, give me money. Oliver Twist kind of thing. It's heartbreaking, but they shelter him. And
and then Alberto like singles out one of them, and he's like, hey, thanks, man. Like, I was just like you know, a long time ago. I didn't have any family or friends, and I still don't really have any family and friends, but like you took care of me, and like I want you to live a better life. And he hands him like a wad of US dollars,
like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, thousands of dollars. And he's like, take this, feed your family, feed your friends, like make a better life than I had. And it's one of those moments that you realize that he's saying goodbye. Like, he knows like he's at the end of the line. He has like the Chinese gang, the North Koreans are trying to find him. He's not safe in South Korea. He has literally like
nowhere
zero options left, and he knows it. And
it's hard. It's well, he leaves the orphans behind, and he's walking through the market, and then he has this flashback where he remembers that Yoon Suri told him that she pawned the engagement ring he gave her, the same engagement ring that Seo-dan helped him pick out. And so he sees this pawn shop, and he's like, I wonder, and he stops by the pawn shop, and like, what he does. And then he runs into the women of the village who are like making dinner or something, and he's like, hi, I smell rice, but can I charge my phone?
Because that's the other thing, his phone has been dead the whole time. And so as soon as it's charged and he's like, eaten or whatever, we get this like scene of Seo-dan like frantically like finally getting in contact with him, and she's like, the house was destroyed when I came back, you weren't answering your phone, like where the fuck are you?
All of your stuff got left behind.
Because we get the scene of her like walking into the house, and she's all like, hey, I got and then she like looks around and everything's destroyed, and she
sees his suitcase.
The panic, she's like, oh fuck.
Uh-huh.
And you can feel her fear in this phone call of like, why the fuck didn't you answer your phone? Like, why was it off all day? Like, where are you? Like, what's going on? I'm not okay.
Not at all. And so he has rice with the village women, charges his phone, calls Seo-dan, and he hunkers down in Captain Lee's old house, and that's where he decides to spend the night. And Theodan rushes down to this little town and like comes into the house and like he like pulls her into the darkness like as she walks in, and like this is the scene that will destroy you.
My entire insides were just destroyed. I'm still not okay thinking about this. She like finally lights a candle. She's like, "You're just sitting in the dark. You're an idiot. Like, close the windows." And they, kind of tuck in, and they have one single candle lit. And whoa, that wasn't even words.
It's okay. We're getting more emotional.
They have one candle lit, and he basically is just talking to her, and he like knows that this is the end, and he has this like, I'm leaving. I finally was able to get a ticket to the UK. Like, I have to go. But
oh my God,
I know. But he's like, well, I haven't always been that guy that has had his life together, and like, but I'm gonna go to the UK, and I won't be back. But if there's ever a time when I can like come visit again, I just hope that you'll wait for me. And it's just, and then she kind of like gets up and she's like, "You're leaving me?" And then she kind of like goes to turn and walk out the door.
And he grabs her hand.
And stops, and everything's still. And she's like starting to cry because she realizes what's happening, but she doesn't realize what's going to happen. And he like turns around and he like says something really fucked up and cute. And he puts the little ring on her finger, and she's sobbing uncontrollably. And it's just,
yeah,
I am not.
If there's ever a chance for us when I come back and you're still single. But you know what really destroyed me about this scene is prior to him proposing, he says, "I'm leaving." And she's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And then he says, "Well, I really want you to tell me that you're not okay with me leaving and ask me to stay." And she says very kind of coldly, "Well, what would be the point of saying that? I know you have to leave for your own good. Mm-hmm. So why would I say that?" And he says, "Because I want to hear it." Oh. And it's this super cute scene because he can read her well enough to know what she's feeling. Yeah. He doesn't need to hear her say it, but it's like he's teaching her how to like express herself and he's teaching her how to be more emotional. And then he proposes, and it's just, these two characters.
God. And he asked basically if she can take him to the airport in the morning, like it'll be the last time they see each other. Like, I just don't want to waste any time. Like, take me right up to the doors of the airport. Like, I just want to spend a little bit more time with you. And
oh my God, this thing.
He gets out of the car and he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to go." And she's like, "Good.
Bye."
And she slams the door, doesn't look at him. She's sobbing, obviously, as the taxi runs away. And he's like really conflicted, and he kind of looks at his ticket, sees the time, and he's like, "Go." And then he's like walking towards the door, and a group of North Korean soldiers walk out looking all suspicious, trying to find someone. And he ducks behind a car and he's like, "Fuck.
Guess I'm going to my gate."
Yeah.
And then it flashes to Theodan, and she's being followed by some suspicious black vehicles again. And then it flashes back to Alberto, and he gets a phone call. Oh. And this phone call, this is what puts you on the death spiral of this episode.
Yes.
It's a bunch of scary dudes, and they're like, "Hey, you hear this woman?" And it flashes to Theodan bawling. "We're going to kill her." And I really appreciated Alberto's character because instantly he's like, "I don't know who the fuck that is. And I don't care about any woman." And he's about to hang up.
Yeah.
And the dude on the other end's like, "We're going to kill her. So if you care about her, you come to this address that we're going to text you." God. And so he hangs up, and Alberto looks at his boarding pass, looks at his phone, and he just goes, "Fuck." And he tears his boarding pass, gets into a taxi.
Because it's just that quick moment of like, because normally the super, straightforward, trustworthy hero character is like, "Don't touch a hair on her head or I'll fucking fuck you up." But it's like we get this great, morally gray character who like immediately is like, "I need to think about this. Like, I'm not going to do anything stupid. Like, I don't know who you're talking about. Like, go ahead and kill her. I don't know
smarter
who it
than
is."
The average bear, because like that would be the normal reaction. Like, "Oh, you hear a random woman sobbing? Like, who the fuck would that be?"
He was so convincing too. And then he's like, "I love her. I can't just let her die."
Yeah. So next we see him. There's another scary factory building.
Obviously,
because that's where all the action
country is
scenes-
just full of them.
And you see Alberto in this bright yellow leather jacket
I love him.
with a shotgun. And he rolls into this building. We see you, Siodan, like being held at gunpoint. And Alberto just starts taking out these dudes one by one, like one shot apiece with this shotgun. And then in the middle of this gunfight, he's like, "Don't worry, honey. I used to do clay pigeon shooting in South Korea." And I'm like, I've been clay pigeon shooting, and like
the best
no
part
fucking way.
The best part of that though is he's like behind the thing, and it's after he's been like clipped in the side or something, and so he's like he kind of turns his head around the corner to say this to Siodan, like, you know, "I'm fine," as he's like smiling. And then when he turns back, he's like, "Oh God, fuck, I'm like dying. Like I was shot. Like I'm not in a fucking good," but he was putting on like a good face to her, like just trying to keep up that like suave, like con man, like, but he's, I'm okay. I'm fine.
He shoots all of them, but not before getting shot multiple times by himself.
By the last guy who was holding Siodan. And then they have like the one exchange shoot off, and then he kind of like falls to the ground because he's been shot one too many times. It was the last guy that he had to kill, and it was so close, and he kind of falls to the ground, and he's been shot a bunch of times. And Siodan's like sobbing as she like runs to him. And then,
oh my God, this is happening concurrently with what happens with Yoon City.
Yes.
Oh my God. The way they concluded this episode, perfection. But Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
I couldn't barely handle it. So
in South Korea.
The squad and Captain Lee are experiencing the benefits of being interrogated by not North Koreans.
Yeah. Because that was sad. They were in the truck being like transported to like the headquarters or whatever. And the little private kid is like, "I heard that they like take off your fingernails before they even get started." And he's like frightened, like visibly frightened.
Yeah.
And the master sergeant is like, "It's fine. We've been through worse before. We're going to be okay. Like, don't freak out." And he's like, "Well, I do think they use like electricity, like, torture here, but like, it'll be fine."
Yeah. But they get in there, they're in process, and they're just questioned.
Yeah.
With a like polygraph machine. And like some advanced like intelligence surveillance stuff going on. They're like, "We know all about you already. Like there's nothing you can tell us that we don't already know." We're like, this is how it works.
Because it's fun too, because they're going through their like bank statements and they're trying to find something that's like suspicious or shady, or like, explain why they're in South Korea as North Korean soldiers. And they're like, "What are these purchases?" And it's like, "Oh, this is for a diamond game package that if you buy this one, the other one is cheaper." And the head investigator guy's like, "I don't want to hear shit like this. Is there anything suspicious?" And he's like, "Not really, but we'll keep looking."
And meanwhile, Captain Lee in his interrogations has told this lie about how he was in South Korea to basically bring Yoon Suri back to North Korea because she's a wealthy businesswoman and he and his big powerful dad need her money.
Yeah.
And like his squad wasn't involved. He was all acting on his own, typical Captain Lee. And meanwhile, Yoon Suri is like, "That's horseshit. Like he came here to protect me." And so she was trying to like actually give the truth and save him. And because they're getting the NIS is getting these conflicting stories, they decide to put them both in a room and get their stories at the same time. And
we get the like quintessential scene where the guy character is like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. You're stupid. I was playing you the whole time." And Yoon City is like, "I know, like, why are you being this mean? I know you're trying to lie just to save me, but like, I won't be in that much trouble. It's fine. Like, if you can continue with this lie, you're going to be executed. Like, please stop."
Love this trope though. I love this trope in fantasy romance books. I love it when like the hero turns evil like with no notice and the heroine believes it for like a good like 3 chapters and she thinks the world is against her. And Captain Lee does a good job at like being like,
"Oh my God,
I'm just using you," and like you feel it. But I really, really liked how Yoon Suri was like, "Okay, this hurts, but I know you. I don't believe any of this." So she tells her story. He continues to be an asshole, and she's like, "Okay, fine, I realize this is getting nowhere." And so she gets up, leaves the room, and as she's already exited, she collapses in the hallway because she got a gunshot wound. And she's done. So Captain Lee's still sitting in there, not understanding that she's collapsed on the outside.
Because he said something like really mean to her, didn't he?
Yeah, he's like, I can't even stand to look at you right now.
Yeah, like it's something like fucked up. And that was like her heartbreaking.
Yeah, so she's like, I need to leave right now. And oh my God, this NIS agent walks in and he's like, was that really necessary? Like that was kind of dickish.
He even knows at this point.
Yeah. And by the way, that woman just collapsed and had to be carried out of the room. And Captain Lee like throws everything aside, walks out, and like makes it out of the room just fast enough to see her being carried away. And so then we get a flash to her at the hospital. She's in critical condition. And
she has like sepsis or whatever, infection.
And she's about to die. Like it's advanced. And we get a deadline like on the heart rate monitor with her and Alberto at the same time.
Yeah. And like Captain Lee is like watching this. He somehow like
they
got
let
their
him
permission.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes at this point in the episode.
That was a little bit weird. So he's like watching in devastation. You know, her family's there like staring at her through the glass window, and he's just like staring, like his hand touching the glass window, and just a single tear. And you get the concurrent scenes where, and it's sad too. I feel like from a outside of romance completely, but the parallels between Yoon City with all of these equipments and doctors like rushing around her and like trying to save her and like advancements, and then you get Alberto who's just in the back of some like delivery truck
ambulance
that's like an ambulance, air quotes,
with air. That's all he's getting right now.
Yeah, and he has multiple gunshots, and he's just like not really there, but he's like looking and staring at Siodan, and she's like holding his hand, and the engagement ring is there,
and then it deadlines. We're back to conclude.
My heart hurts.
I know.
I'm sad now.
So this is we are moving on to episode 16 now. And yeah, everyone's on life support. And kind of as you would expect, like this is not a super unpredictable plot point.
Yeah.
It's just very, very sad.
Yeah. Because it's just, they're like, oh, we should talk about the noodle thing really quick. So fucking Alberto is dying. It's like basically his last words. And we get this flashback. And I think we get the original scene, but maybe we didn't talk about it. So it's Siodan and Alberto sitting in her apartment, and she's like made noodles for him or something because it's like late. And Alberto makes this kind of like sleazy joke, and he's like, oh, you know, if you ever go to South Korea or anywhere else, like don't ask anyone else besides me to have noodles late at night. And so we had to ask our friend about this. But that basically is the equivalent of like Netflix and chill is like to go eat ramen with someone at late at night. And so Siodan, and you kind of get the thought that she knows what this is.
I think she's traveled abroad. She's not dumb.
Yeah. And so she's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, why wouldn't I say that? And he's like, well, you know, he doesn't want to obviously make this very lewd joke. And he's like, just don't say it. And she's like, she stares at him. Her chopstick like drops on her hand. And she's like, what if I like it? And he has this moment of like existential, like his soul leaves his body. You watch it on screen. You're like, this man has never met a woman that's equally suave as him and like been on the receiving end of this. And he's like, what do you mean? And then she just kind of like smiles like coyly and into her like ramen.
Her noodles.
And he's like, no, you need to tell me, like, do you mean like you would say yes to me? And so he's dying in the back of this ambulance. And instead of saying anything cute about, you know, like, don't forget me, I love you or whatever, he's like, the ramen thing. Were you talking about me? Like, I just need to know. And she's like, yes, I'm talking about you, you stupid asshole. And he's like, I knew it. And then he dies.
He dies. He dies. And Siodan just breaks.
God, and she, in the scene, she's like covering her face as she's sobbing, and you see the little like beautiful engagement ring
that she picked out.
God. And like after that, it almost gets worse because you get these scenes of Siodan, who's normally this very unemotional, like aloof character, just depressed as fuck, just laying in bed,
not eating, not talking.
And her like mom comes out of the room and she's like, I really don't know what to do. Like she doesn't want to eat, she doesn't want to leave, she just wants to like lay there. And it's the most depressing fucking thing. But then Siodan kind of like gets up and she opens the door and she's like, I want revenge. And
oh my God. So validating. And both her mom and her uncle are like, we are with you.
Yeah, we will do anything.
Anything you want.
it was such a good moment. And it kind of made me sad because I'm one of those people that like, that's way better. Like, I would just mope in bed for the next 9 to 12 business months. Like, but she's like, no, I'm absolutely going to fuck these people up. Like, you take something from me, like, prepare to get revenge, bitch.
Yeah. So for Siodan, it's like we needed at least something for her to keep going on.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, did she have to lose Alberto?
I know. And it's sad, too, because you get the scene concurrently again of him flatlining and then Yoon City coming back. Like, they've used the little paddles or whatever. And so her heartbeat starts and then his stops. And it's like, God, they like took, again, something away from Siodan. Like, why do they get everything?
I know.
So Yoon City is fine.
She wakes up. Captain Lee's not there, and you get a glimpse into what's been developing in the background, which is to say the North Koreans, specifically Captain Lee's dad, have engaged in negotiations to do basically a prisoner trade with the squad, Captain Lee, and then like 9 South Koreans that were imprisoned,
like accused of spying or something.
Exactly. So the negotiations are coming through, and Yoon City's mom comes into her hospital room and says, "I'm glad you're awake. By the way, they're doing a trade. They're going back to North Korea now."
This is so sad.
And Yoon Suri is like, okay, I don't want to see him. We've said enough goodbyes. And that's when her mom tells her he was by your side for days while you were here. And he never left. And Yoon Suri just breaks and let's go meet him at the border. And so, there's a lot happening. So again, this is a 2-hour episode. They show him and the squad are on the bus going to do the prisoner swap. Yoon Suri's mom and Yoon Suri get into the sweet, beautiful white, white sedan.
Like coupe.
Yeah. And her mom just goes full throttle.
I love this moment.
Her mom is really cool as a character. And drive to the border.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the DMZ.
Like 130 miles per hour.
Yeah. And so gets on the phone with the lead NIS agent and is like, hey, do you have like 5 minutes for them to say goodbye?
He's like at the border, like staring at all these scary North Koreans. And he's like, I guess.
Sure. Because that's how that would work in real life.
Yeah.
And so they're walking. It's past the time and they conduct the prisoner exchange. And everyone has crossed except Captain Lee. And he's already over the border. And then
he takes like one step.
And they pull up in the car. And Yoon Suri is... This annoyed me a little bit. If anything annoyed me in the show, it was this scene because it was... it was a little ridiculous.
It was unrealistic. But it was also gut-wrenching.
Yeah. She runs towards him and he just tells her, don't run, stop.
Because there's all these people with guns.
They're going to shoot her.
It's at the DMZ.
And they have their last reunion.
But it's like, so he's like, stop running, Yoon City. Like, they're, stop. And she's still running. And then he sees someone like lift up a gun in his like peripheral or whatever. And then he like rips around and like embraces her like to protect her, but they're hugging and everyone's crying. And Yoon City is like, why do you have to leave? Like, can't you just stay with me? And he's like, well, like,
because they're putting handcuffs on them. The North Koreans are.
Yeah. And she's like, why are you being arrested? Like, what is happening? And he's like, I'm going to be fine. Like, you have to stay here and just like live your life. Like, everything is going to be fine. And she's like, it's not going to be fine. Like, you're going back to North Korea and I'm never going to see you again. And we can never like call each other. And he's like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. I love you. It'll be fine. And then he's like dragged away and arrested. And like Yoon City's just like dissolving.
That is their final goodbye.
Except we get the flashback of the text messages. That was the part that fucks me up. So Yoon City the next day is just like laying in bed depressed and she gets a text message and she reads it and she's like, what? And it's Captain Lee saying like, hey, good morning. Like, make sure you eat something today before you go to work. And she's like, how is this even possible? And then you get a flashback of Captain Lee talking to the NIS investigator and he gets his stuff back because they're about to go back into North Korea and he's holding his phone and the guy is explaining this is how you schedule text messages to send on certain days. And so that Captain Lee scheduled months, like a whole year
of text messages.
And so we just get this like montage.
And then before he left South Korea, when he was in Yoon Suri's apartment, he set up her apartment, stocked her fridge and her pantry, left instructions on how to cook because Yoon Suri doesn't know how to cook.
Yeah.
He left her a recording of his piano music.
Oh, God. And the shelf thing. So he's like stocking the shelves full of food and he's like looking at the top shelf and he puts some stuff up there. And then he kind of like stares at it for a second and then he like drops down a couple inches and then he tries to grab it and he's like, that's not going to work. And so he switched around her whole cabinet so she could grab all of the food in it. And it's just this like careful, like caring, like.
It's very thoughtful.
Oh, yeah.
So he did all of these like steps before he ever left to take care of her. Like it, and I think part of why it's so romantic and so sweet is because it's the amount of like thought and time and energy that takes to like putting that amount of work into someone. You just don't see that a lot.
No. And he like scheduled a seed to get delivered to her in a little plant. And he like sends her, text notifications or whatever. And he's like, hey, like you need to take care of this seed. Like you have to take care of it and water it and tell it 10 nice things every day. Cause that was like a throwback to what she told him in the beginning. And, the seed grows and it's on her birthday. It's like snowing outside and she's sitting in the living room. And it's funny because I was talking to my partner during this and I'm like, well, what happens when the text messages like stop? Like he only had so much time to schedule these. Like all of a sudden you're just not going to get text messages. Like that would fuck me up. And then it's like literally like, this is my last message. You can only send them like up to a year. I'm sorry. But like when the flower blooms, like meet me there and we will try, if fate allows.
It's the place where the flower is from. And it's an Edelweiss flower.
From Switzerland.
And so it's been, I think, a year or 2 years since all of this has happened, since he was taken back to North Korea. And we get some like daily life glimpses of how Yoon Suri is processing. And you see how well she's doing because of all of these steps that Captain Lee has taken to take care of her. And he's also doing well. He's taking care of his squad. He's doing his missions. And then there's a final scene where he's having dinner with the women of the town and his squad.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, it's time for me to give up I'm being discharged from the military. I'm going to go play in the National Symphony. And like, this is where you start to see, there's hope left in this episode.
And then Yoon Suri is starting up like a music scholarship, basically, where they'll take kids from around the world who are musical geniuses and pay for them to be in this society or whatever. And it's sad because she's been scheduling these trips to Switzerland for the last like year, and she'll go and there's scenes of her in these like beautiful outfits, just like looking stunning. Like the one where she has the jeans on and the high heel and the black leather jacket. I was like, oh my God.
Hello.
I panic. Like, but it's like depressing because she never ends up seeing him.
She goes there every year. And so it's been now 3 or 4 years where she goes to Switzerland at the same time every year. And like there's a scene where she's in Switzerland at a park and she hears someone playing the piano. And so she runs towards the piano and it's not Captain Lee. And you just see the heartbreak on her face. But she keeps going back year after year after year. And then it's the like 4th year, I think. And she's kind of over it.
Yeah.
And she's paragliding, hand gliding, whatever it's called.
Oh, she was setting up the like music performance or whatever. And she's like sitting at the little table, candlelit table. Is that before the paragliding thing?
That's after.
Oh shit, I'm fucked up. Okay, yeah, the paragliding one makes way more sense.
It is like burned into my brain.
That's fair.
Okay, so they have yet to reunite. And she's told her mom a couple times, like, destiny has put us in each other's paths over the course of so many years. I have complete and utter faith that this man will find me in Switzerland again. And that's an important theme throughout this episode, is having faith in your partner, like despite everybody or all the circumstances lining up against you. And so she's kind of over it though, like off the 4th year. So she's hand gliding, paragliding, and through the beautiful Swiss Alps, and like it makes you want to go to Switzerland. I'm like, I need to add that to my bucket list. And
because all the other ones, she has these beautiful outfits on, and now she's in like a red jumpsuit.
Yeah, and so she's paragliding, and she lands very awkwardly, like stumbles to her knees, is covered by her little tent paragliding thing. And so she's kind of bitching to herself, like, God damn it, I look so great up here, except I can never land. And so she's muttering to herself. And then you hear this voice like from outside the tent being like, oh, I thought you landed rather perfectly. And then she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is bullshit. And so she's like, hair is everywhere. She finally like pulls up the tent hand gliding thing, and she sees these shiny pair of shoes and the all black outfit and this like tan trench coat. And there is Captain Lee standing on a mountaintop, apparently out of nowhere.
Because that was the cute thing too, because she's like, how the fuck are you here? And he's like, I took a wrong turn on a bus. And it's like, he planned to go somewhere and wait for her, and he took a wrong turn, and now he actually found her.
And she dropped out of the sky, because Crash Landing on You, the name of this entire show, she crash landed on him again.
God.
And they reunite. And they have found each other again.
I'm gonna cry.
It's so sweet.
God.
So there's a lot of other like, this is like halfway through the episode, I think, or 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
There are several, like, they close out several character arcs. They really could have ended it there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I think going back to where you were starting to talk about
the symphony thing, yeah. Because I think it's like the following year or something, and he like walks in and she's like, oh, you're late. And he's like, sorry, but I got here anyways. And then like the evil bitch-in-law or whatever is arrested for like obviously hiring someone to murder her sister. And then they have this like Yin City and Captain Lee have this like little like house in Switzerland.
Yeah, they have a beautiful chalet that they just have picnics in front of. And
yeah, and then it kind of ends with them just being cute and kissing each other or something.
It's we needed that ending after what we suffered through with
that is true
15 and the beginning of 16.
But it was just one of those things, like, because I watched this and then I talked to you at work about it, and you're like, no, I haven't seen it yet. But it's like, it's sweet and like a happy ending, but it's also a little bit bittersweet because they're still separated, you know?
I don't know. I thought that was the only way that relationship could have like continued and developed. Like, given their circumstances, given their families. Oh, okay. There was one scene that we skipped in 16 that I absolutely loved, and it's not a romance plot line at all.
Which scene?
Oh my God. Okay. So yes, we are done with all the conflict resolution. Yeah. So as the squad and Captain Lee are on the bus, they've crossed the border, they crossed the DMZ, and they're on their way back to North Korea.
The plot hole that we just didn't address.
Gigantic plot hole. So their bus and their military escort pulls over in the middle of the woods, and the squad and Captain Lee are basically escorted off the bus into the middle of nowhere. And then you see all of these military soldiers pull out guns and start aiming. And you see the setup, like this is a execution squad in the middle of the forest. And you're like, holy fuck, what is going on here? Oh my God. So Big Daddy Captain Lee puts on his, like, gets out of his chair. You never see this man, this very powerful North Korean director, in anything but like a plaid shirt and khakis. And you get this one final scene in his house where he's got all of his military uniform on, all his medals, and he's talking to his wife, and she's like, bring my son home. I don't care if you come back, but bring my son home. And so he walks out the door very calmly, and he shows up with his personal escort service and all his personal military, and basically takes out the entire squad of this senior military director. But and this is very dark of me, I know, but what I really appreciated as like a character development point is that this military leader, the evil one who's trying to execute everyone, is talking to Captain Lee. Captain Lee's dad walks up, point blank, shoots this man in the face, and is like, doesn't hesitate, just pulls a gun and kills him. And that's why when you realize the distinct difference between Captain Lee's character and his dad, who's risen to this position of like extreme power and influence because he can make decisions and actions like that. And Captain Lee would never be able to function like that.
It was a nice kind of illustration almost, because a lot of fantasy romance books, they'll describe their hero as, like the dad, but then they'll have him make decisions like Captain Lee, and it's kind of desynchronizing the character. But that's what I appreciate about Crash Landing. It's distinct that like the dad character is a little bit aloof, but he at the end of the day is going to do whatever he has to do. But then Captain Leaf is like, you know, seen as aloof, but he feels on the inside, and it's not that, you know, oh yeah, he's going to shoot someone point blank. Like, no, he had the opportunity to, and he's still too noble to do it. Like, it's a nice divide between those two distinct characters that sometimes get conflated, I think, in fantasy romance.
And something this show also does well, like that you don't see in fantasy romance a lot, is the development of these background characters. All of the background characters, even the villains in Crash Landing on You, are so necessary to the plot and to the development, and so much time is spent giving them, like, this is their backstory, this is why they make the decisions that they make, that you feel so invested in their storylines that you can spend 16 to 20 hours watching them.
And they do it, like, really tactfully too. I don't know that's the right word, but where you feel invested in them, and it's not necessarily like, oh, here's another plot line that I like don't really care about that's not relevant to the plot. It's like all of their individual motives and actions impact the plot, even though they're secondary characters, which is again something that fails, especially with like diversity and inclusion in fantasy romance books, where you'll get like a person of character as the sub character, but their actions don't really impact anything. So it just feels like this like token character. But Crash Landing on You, all of the secondary characters were like doing things that were involving and moving the plot forward, which is definitely something that fantasy romance can like take a few
lessons from. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm in love with K-dramas.
I am too. They're really well done. Like, and it's frustrating too, because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, you just like romance, you know, TV shows. But it's like, when you look at the plot, it's well crafted.
Yeah, I think we both appreciate, like, what we talk about a lot is the romance development, but the development is all of that conflict and the tension and the buildup to the resolution. And I think that's what a lot of people enjoy about these style of dramas, whether it's a book or a movie. It's the conflict buildup, the development, resolution, and this feeling of satisfaction having seen something done well that you don't really get to see in real life.
Yeah, honestly. Because I mean, when are you going to see anything like this in real life?
Never. And hopefully you don't want to see something like this in real life. It's not that pretty to tie up all of the loose ends and everything. But so this is our last pod episode for a couple weeks. So we will not be having episodes published next Monday or the Monday after that. However, we can't resist.
I know.
So we were talking about this. We're like, no, we'll take 2 weeks, like get ready for fall, kind of get everything spun up. But then we realized we just can't do that. So we are going to continue having picks of the week. So we'll have a pick of the week coming out next Wednesday.
And the Wednesday after.
And
so you have something to tide you over.
Exactly. And if you have a taste for K-dramas, one of those picks of the week will be another K-drama.
That it will.
So from our Netflix to yours.
We'll see you on the next scene. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.
Bussin'.